Hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So I just wanted to make an announcement. If you're having trouble hearing this presentation, then there's just a little notice up in the corner of your screen, I guess, that says hide. Click on the hide video and then show video again, and that should refresh it. Okay, so I guess we'll get started. My name's Dion Hutchings. I'm a technical evangelist at Microsoft, and it's a really great pleasure to accept this invitation to speak at College Week. And I wanted to talk about, maybe share some of my experiences working as an engineer and all of the kind of different jobs I've had, and hopefully that will be maybe give you some ideas on what it's like to be an engineer, as well as hopefully some inspiration on that being an engineer doesn't just mean that you're writing code or you're testing code or you're designing software, and that there's lots of other places you can play in a company, especially like a company like Microsoft, but other technology companies, and I think it's just the best field to be in for sure. So I wanted to, before we get started, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, and give you some background into how for starters, I got this accent and how on earth I ended up in the United States. So I grew up in a sugarcane town in North Queensland, Australia, and so it's a really small town. Grew up on a farm. And my dad bought me an I'm not sure if the US folks would be familiar with this type of computer, but it was called an Amstrad. And so I learnt to program on this computer that was similar to a Commodore 64, and I was writing BASIC. And I taught myself how to write BASIC, and wrote all sorts of back then we called them programs, I guess, instead of apps. But where I'm from, instead of hurricanes, we have cyclones. So I wrote a cyclone tracking map in BASIC that would track cyclones, for example, and so that was fun. And then, of course, fast forward through university, I studied computer science, and I think that was the best thing I ever did. And also, when I was going through high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to write software. I wanted to be a developer, and so that motivated me to go to university. And there was no doubt on what course I was going to do. And so that was kind of like a computer science degree, which probably nowadays you would akin to a software engineering degree. Bachelor of Computer Science, and I did computer science, and I did a major in software engineering, which was the beginnings of a whole degree later. And then after university, I'll fast forward to a couple of jobs. In Australia, there's a kind of a benefit where you can live and work in another Commonwealth country, like Canada or England, for a year when you're under 30. So I really thought I had to take advantage of that, so I quit my job and flew to North America, to Canada. And there I became I learnt to ski. I'd never seen snow before because I grew up in the north, you see. And I learnt to ski, and I worked at the front desk of a hotel in a ski resort in British Columbia. So that was really fun. And I just have to say, if you ever get an opportunity to do something like that, that was really cool. And then another kind of milestone is how I ended up in Seattle, Washington. So right now I'm in sunny Redmond, and you can see the sun through the window. In Redmond, Washington, where Microsoft is. And I ended up in Seattle because of Boeing, and that's a story that I'll talk about in a second. So I thought about this as a story to share with you guys. Is it not just I don't want this to be so much about like what I did or what my career was and a story about me. Rather, I wanted to share that it's turned out that I've done a lot of different types of jobs, technical jobs within Boeing and Microsoft and a couple of startups, and that I started out as an engineer and then realized that I could leverage my engineering mind, if you like, into lots of other areas in the business. And so this presentation isn't about how awesome I am. It's rather that it's that I didn't set out to do this, to take this kind of tour, and to set out to do different types of jobs and to have, to round out my skills. But it turns out that was a good move to go to different aspects. And so I wanted to share that with you today. So I started out as a developer, like I said, and my first job out of university or college was working for a startup, and it was a information management system, and that local governments would buy. It was called DataWorks, and it was an excellent little company, and it was a great bunch of people, and it was an exciting time. And for example, we wrote the application in Visual Basic, and it had C++ kind of middleware, and it was the classic kind of client server application where the customer had to have their own server, Windows server, and and it ran like an SQL database. And I think that being a dev is the best job, like, because I'm not sure, I don't want to presume that everyone on the call is an engineer. Just that there's lots of opportunity to be creative and to kind of solve problems. And I like to think of it as a job to kind of express your creativity, but also to manage complexity. Like, so using creativity to manage complex things, so that it's ultimately like a much simpler experience for the user, or it's a much simpler experience for an administrator, or anything that's kind of attached to the system. And so I guess I wanted to talk about a couple of cool things that I did, but I got to I looked for areas that were kind of solving problems. That's kind of my advice would be, is there things that you can kind of help smooth out a process, or make the product better, or make the experience for the user better, and things like that. And so while I was, for example, at DataWorks, I wrote an application that ended up saving a ton of time by gathering data from disparate sources, typically like old microfiche, like scanned microfiche that was old archival data, and then converting it to a kind of a normalized schema in SQL. And I did other things like for example, when after DataWorks, I went to a military project for the Australian Army, and so we were working on a kind of a ruggedized mobile device. And so in that project, there's lots of documentation, and you're trying to capture, in software engineering, you're trying to capture the design as well as help the team coordinate what kind of aspects go into the software with requirements, and you're tracking requirements all the way down to tests. And so in that project, there was lots of areas where rather than worrying about a document being formatting what the stuff that goes into a document and trying to version control that, I realized, hey, let's strip out the data, because the data is a really important thing. And also, this was a really complex military project, so let's extract the data, and then we'll put that into source control, and then we can render that data in any way we want. And that sounds simple, probably sounds simple to you, but that was kind of like something where I thought was that's helped me through my career, is like looking for ways to kind of like seek out problems. And I think that's in general that's like kind of what engineers do. And then once I moved to Boeing Australia, and I started working on some really cool stuff there as a developer in Australia with Boeing. And I worked on the F-111 aircraft, and we were integrating a missile onto that aircraft. And so there was lots of really cool things, to do there. I was writing, kind of code that I'd never seen before that were much kind of more legacy systems. Writing code for boxes that were integrated into an aircraft, and these machines they're custom built, and it's custom software, and so that was very interesting to learn, especially real-time systems. I think real-time is kind of an overloaded term these days, but real-time in the real use of real-time is something that's deterministic, where you can guarantee that a cycle or an action is going to happen in that exact amount of time every cycle. So and then of course that's how I ended up in the United States, was through Boeing. So I came to Boeing in the US, and we were working on a Royal Australian Air Force jet. That's basically a flying AWACS aircraft for the Australian government. And that was really fun, and that was another area where, I think that by trying to streamline processes, or trying to streamline and work with other teams, that really helped me, especially where we were figuring out, how to keep, objects, in a subscription pattern working better. So we came up with redesigned some architectural level software, and that really helped the project over time. Oops, sorry, I'm still getting the hang of advancing the slides. And then I had an opportunity to do some test, and so I thought this really I didn't necessarily plan this jump to be, this is going to help me in my career, but it turned out that being a tester for a spell made me a much better dev. And so I think that the challenges I faced there was kind of switching modes to kind of like coming up, designing your little piece of the system, and owning that little piece of the system, and then and it's almost like that. I call it your zone of excellence. So you can you kind of own that space, and you define the interfaces into that, but you own that. But with being a tester, you're trying to come up with complex scenarios. Or especially what I was doing was I was testing the integrated system, and so what was really cool was I worked in a lab where it was basically a replica of the aircraft inside, and all the computing inside. So trying to come up with complex kind of scenarios to test the ultimate the aircraft in the environment and all the things that the sensors were picking up, and so. That was really challenging, but that made me a better dev, because when I went to write code later, it's like, oh, wait a minute, how am I going to help out the tester here? Is this unit, or maybe this I suppose unit is depending on where you're looking at the system, but can this be testable? How is this much easier to automate the testers? How the testing, can it be hooked easily into a harness and things like that? And in fact, with military software, there was lots of automated testing. I'm sure there's lots of places that do automated testing, but that was very, very important to have. It was very stringent regression testing, so that every day the automated tests were run over the code anytime any code was changed. Another cool thing I got to do was eventually flight testing in the aircraft, that's a pretty cool experience. Fly, and it's kind of weird to fly for 8 hours around in central Washington, and then fly home after 8 hours, and then find your car in the parking lot. Whereas normally you would fly that far and you would go to, say, the UK or something. So anyway, that was some good times, and lots of good friends made there. So my next step was I had met some folks in Microsoft, being in Seattle for 5 years, and someone approached me to do a technical marketing job in Microsoft. And the first up, I thought, you're nuts. I'm an engineer. I'm not sure what value I would bring to a marketing organization, and it turns out a lot. And it turned out to be a really, really fun role, and a fun group too. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Windows Embedded, but Windows Embedded inside Microsoft develops kind of specialized versions of Windows to go into embedded devices. And you'd be surprised where Windows is running. It's running in pretty much every ATM machine in the US or the world is running Windows. Cash machines, like I said, cash registers, all sorts of rugged type devices in warehouses and things like that. So this really gave me an opportunity to realize that that it turned out, and maybe you be the judge of this, but it turned out I was a reasonably good communicator, as well as I understood technology. And so that's the problem they were trying to solve in the marketing team, is to have a product manager inside the marketing team that would be able to generate content for the web or for printed material, or doing, talking to customers and going to trade shows and kind of going with the marketing team and being able to present technical aspects of the product. And also, this was a great kind of lesson and kind of added to my toolkit, but it's thinking about the value prop. That's kind of a term that's used, but I like to think of it as what's in it for the customer, what are the features that the customer is looking for, and hopefully we've built the right thing in the first place, but it's up to the kind of the technical marketer to build material that's going to highlight almost the technical audience. So there's other folks worrying about the decision maker, and sometimes they're the same person, but the technical guy is thinking about what is the value prop for the technical person, so that when the decision maker and the technical decision maker are talking, it's like, oh yeah, we need this product because of XYZ, it'll do this for us, and there was really easily spelt out in this material, for example, or this white paper. So that was I think this was a good step for me in what turned out to be an area in technical communication. And that, like I said, I thought this was awesome that I was able to use my engineering skills in something that was new and fun. In this type of job, you get to fly around places, and I'm sure this job exists in other technology companies, I'm sure, but in Microsoft this is a very important role, and then you kind of own the product technically, and so you're kind of the go-between between the development team and the marketers. And often, this is not always the way, but often there's other folks as well involved. There's product planners and program managers, and with kind of in collaboration, you're kind of helping to design the product based on customer feedback and what the company thinks is the right direction for the product. So overall, I think this is just another really cool place for engineers to work. Sorry. So my next leap was I continued on the Windows Embedded path, but then I had an opportunity to go to sales. And sales inside Microsoft is a huge kind of organization with lots of really cool people in there that are kind of focused on, whereas the marketing team is kind of one to many, whereas sales you're kind of going one to few. Where I was responsible for a set of customers, and typically sales you think of kind of regions where you carve out an area and you focus on those customers. And that was great because I got to focus on some more kind of customers, and you effectively make friends with those. And also my job was to be a trusted advisor. So I went into those customers and made friends with the engineers, and it doesn't, hopefully that doesn't sound so bad, but you do kind of form relationships, with those engineers, and you get to know truly what they're trying to do. And even if, like, for example, in that role, I was in the OEM division, so those kind of companies, those partners, were building devices. And I think that's one of the really things that I really love about working in this company, and it gets me out of bed every day with a spring in my step, is that I really like how Microsoft is kind of views companies like OEMs that are building PCs or devices, they're partners. We're kind of sharing the space together, and we're kind of being successful together. And so if Microsoft's not successful, or the other way around, that it doesn't benefit anybody. And so I thought that was really good to learn that skill of being, from being a dev to fast forward to this sales kind of role. Is I really learned how to be a good advocate for my customers. And so I was, in the end, I could spurt out in a moment's notice. Say if I met somebody, an influential person on the product group, I could spurt out in the elevator the problems that the customers were facing, and be able to articulate and to be able to justify, come up with a justification of, hey, we may need to make a change here, or this is really good, the customer loves that. And so, and also, what was really cool about this job was helping the customers complete projects. Because I was an engineer, I could, really get deep on, or I could find other people that were even deeper and have a conversation to either the engineers inside Microsoft, and to be able to relay the problems, or to be able to go on site with the customer and kind of sit down and learn the problems they're facing and kind of take that back. And that, again, that's that kind of trusted advisor role. And also, it was a team. It was great because I was going in with the sales person, and we were a team. And so I had my role was to kind of talk the technical, and the sales person was there to really, to foster the relationship, and they were really thinking about the numbers and things like that. So I didn't have to worry about that. So don't worry, if you ever get into sales, I really recommend it as a technical person. But often, it depends on the company, but often you don't have to worry about that kind of territory or making the number and things like that. One other thing I just want to mention is some of the cool things I did in that role were and this is maybe unique to Microsoft, but sometimes some of my customers would visit Microsoft, one of the larger ones that were influential, and that I got to go around the company and kind of ask folks from all over the company to kind of present like an executive briefing. And so I think that type of role, you really get exposure around the company, or around, your industry, for example, and you get to sit into some really kind of high level meetings that you would otherwise not be if you were kind of building pieces of the system. So what am I doing now? So I think this, I did say that being a dev was the best job. Well, I think this is the best job. I'm a technical evangelist, but for Windows Azure. So I'm in a larger group of evangelists that were focusing on different product pieces of Windows Azure, but also I'm the student audience guy. So I get to kind of fly around the world and talk to students and talk to other folks inside Microsoft that are talking to students in the subsidiaries around the world, as well as generating content for those folks. So I'm always in touch with various folks in the company as well as students. I still get to write code, which is a bonus. So I get to kind of talk about technology, which is my favorite thing to do, as well as writing code. I'm writing demos, and I'm really trying to write. When I write demos and writing kind of stories, or writing or producing videos, for example, and using social media, I really want to help students kind of, for example, writing applications for Windows 8 and Windows Phone, and how would you use Windows Azure for that? And I want to plug is if you're building, if there's any engineers out there and folks writing applications for mobile devices, then I really recommend go check out that short link there. and it's a link to the Getting Started guide for building Windows 8 or Windows Phone applications for Windows Azure using mobile services. And I really recommend it. It's a turnkey solution. It's it's one line of code to update the database and things like that, and you can add identity and push notifications and easily add Facebook or Twitter or Microsoft identity to your app, and it makes it really professional. And you also can use iOS, Android, Windows Phone, Windows 8, and you can write web pages against this one service. So you build one service, you can connect all these things. So that's my plug for the day. Or maybe, dang it, maybe I have a couple more. But I really want you to go check that out, because that's some of the stuff I've been working on, kind of bringing out the word about attaching Windows Azure to building applications. You'd think I would learn how to do this. Hang on. So I wanted to just reiterate that in a company like Microsoft, and I don't want to just narrow it down to Microsoft, but any kind of technology company like Microsoft, I think that as an engineer, there's so many places where you could play. And I haven't mentioned all of them. I just kind of wanted to tell my story, and I've loved the path that I've taken, and I wouldn't change it. So, doing and I think it's great how companies like Microsoft there's real demand for your skills, especially if you're a good communicator. And I don't want to downplay. There's we have tons of opportunities for, and other companies have tons of opportunities for engineers. And I think that that's your thing. You should stick to it. But if you're thinking, I really like coding, but I like talking to people about technology as well, then I really think there's tons of other places you can go, within a company like Microsoft. And is there anything else I'm going to say about that? Oops. So I wanted to talk about a couple more things. So please go to microsoft.com/student, and you'll see there's tons of material there about all the stuff that we do as the kind of the team that's focusing on helping students use Microsoft technologies. And one of the standouts is the Student to Business site. Go check this out. It's a good mate of mine owns this program, and it's all about connecting students with some of our partners, and our partners are looking for good talent. So it's kind of a place for our business partners to kind of register themselves and looking for good talent, and it's a great place for students to go to get connected with some of our Microsoft Connect ecosystem, which is vast, by the way. And DreamSpark, go there if you're not already aware of that, but that's a great place to kind of log in, and it vets you as a student and identifies what school you go to, and then you can download free software. And who doesn't want free software? And there's tons of all the usual stuff is on there for students, as well as Imagine Cup. Please check this out. All the kind of registration and everything's kind of finalized. In fact, all the teams that are competing have already kind of gone through local rounds and online rounds of judging. And so then we're gearing up right now. I'm involved in this. I'm the captain of the innovation competition, as well as involved in the in the Azure competition. Is we're all flying to, and all those teams that were selected are all flying to Russia, St. Petersburg, Russia, and then we're going to battle it out for the final prize for the Imagine Cup. So go to Imagine Cup and check it out, especially if you're thinking about doing it next year. So I wanted to leave plenty of time. I think I kind of raced through those slides, but I want to, this is probably a good opportunity to answer any questions. Yes, yeah, so that's hard to say. First I'll read the question. It says, today, are you doing the job you hoped you would do, or the job you dreamed of? I think, to be honest, I didn't think I would be doing anything of the job I was doing that I'm doing today. But it is my it is my, in retrospect, looking back, it's my dream job because I really, really enjoy it. But I guess when I was kind of writing VB and C code, and that was fun too. And then writing C++ in for kind of Boeing, that was cool too. So it's hard to say that I didn't think ahead for sure that it was this is where I was headed. Oh, I'm not sure. There's a John. You said that none of the links work for you. I'm not sure what links you're referring to. But just email me. If it's one of those links that I provided, then just email me at Dion Hut, or you can tweet me at Dion Hut Twitter, and then I can if I can help you out with if you're interested in Windows Azure or any of the other Microsoft Student sites. Another question is, if you could have any other job in the world, what would you pick? That's a good question. I've not really thought about it. I guess there's maybe I could now that I've kind of on this path, maybe I could check off a few more engineering roles that are in Microsoft. Like for example, program manager. I have maybe I'd like to try my hand at that. And that's another cool technical role where you kind of own a product and you're coordinating dev and test. You're owning a piece of the product together with the developers and the testers. Not sure I'm qualified, but there's architectural type positions and things like that. So maybe we'll see. I'm reasonably, in the middle of my career, so who knows where I'll end up. Yeah, so someone's asking about they're majoring in computer science and engineering, and they like working in software and hardware. That's a good idea, by the way. Software and hardware is where it's at. So that's a good idea, working at Microsoft. So I would recommend going to WAC Student, and on there's links on internships and links on careers, or Microsoft WAC Careers, and then there's links in the career site on how to prepare for an interview, or what things, what type of roles there are and things like that. And you can even look at the job descriptions and see what the current job openings are and things like that. So I'd recommend going to those kind of sites. And I myself, I never did any kind of internship like that, but I wish I had the opportunity. It says, question is, can you explain if women truly receive more advantages to being hired in an engineering field? I really don't know if there's any advantage for women or men. Like, I think that Microsoft is really really make sure that that everyone gets the same advantage, and and that there's women engineers all over the company, and women technical people. In fact, I talk to women in technical fields all the time, and so I just don't know if there's anything in place to kind of alleviate that. I think that if you're smart and talented, and and sometimes it's more than just when you're doing an interview, like it's been a long time since I've done that kind of interview, but writing code on the whiteboard, and that may be not your strength, but if you're a good communicator, or if your other strengths, and you're still technical, then there's other ways to kind of get to add value and to make an impact. I my GPA, I don't know. I don't have any, like, I went to school in Australia, so I don't know the equivalent. But I in high school, I wasn't the best student. And I guess I really excelled when in high school we did this, like, I did in computing classes and things like that, and math and in science. But kind of overall I was kind of average. But I don't think you can be, I don't think you need to be stellar to do what you love, and if you're passionate and you're smart in the area that you choose to go into, then I think that's a good tip, is kind of focusing on your strengths, and that's my view, is kind of do what you love. Like, if you love it and you're passionate about it, you're more likely to do better. That's my take on it. I'm not the expert in this. I just wanted to, I'm probably not the expert, or I'm not the be end and end all of advice, but I just wanted to share some of my experiences, and hopefully that gives you some idea of, gives you some inspiration into, how you can, because that's what I wanted when I was starting out, is I wanted to make impact. I wanted to be, if I was building software, I wanted to be part and see someone using it. If I'm kind of talking about technology, I wanted to see customers succeed and things like that. That's what kind of motivates me. The address of the Microsoft student site is microsoft.com/student. Sorry. I'll go back to that slide. Hang on. Microsoft.com/student. So any other questions? Looks like there's no more questions. Oh, one more. Yeah, the question is, would you say that the education you had helped you with how far you've come? I would say yeah. I think the path was probably the right path, but I'm just not the expert in, what, maybe I should study that up more, as to what type of degrees would get me, if I started out today, how would I go about it? That's a good point. I might look into that. But I think the degree I did was excellent, and I think half the time is you just need a degree, you need a degree to kind of to open the conversation, and then it's about your experiences. So, and if you're a college student and you're starting out, then the experiences are, hey, I built this application, or hey, I built this, piece of software, or hey, I built, I built this kind of business plan, or things like that. Because when I was in university, we kind of did side projects and things like that, and I think that made the most impact in an interview. But having the degree was good because, for example, I learned all sorts of things about it. I think university is great for introducing you to different concepts. Kind of dipping your toe in the water, kind of thing. I learned a little bit about artificial intelligence, for example. I learned a little bit about operating systems. How I learned. I think the most important thing I learned was processing, software engineering processes, even though it's all different nowadays. But it just in general, like how important it is to have a process around, controlling complexity and documenting and different types of things like waterfall models and group computing and like group programming. Things like that. So I think that my advice would be, if you wanted to be an engineer, I'd still think you would do some sort of software engineering to get those basics of how software is built, and then you could go from there. No, thank you. Hopefully my story kind of invoked some kind of thinking about where you could take your career, and I think mine's been a fun ride. So hopefully maybe I'll see you around on campus. All right, I think I might. If there's no more questions, I think I might end the presentation. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me to talk. Thanks a lot.